Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming along this evening. I'm delighted to welcome you to the Thriving While Leading Global Majority Voices from Health and Care series this evening, which is part of the Bristol Distinguished Address Series, or commonly known as BDAS for short, hosted by UWE Bristol in partnership with our equity programme, which I'm sure that if you haven't heard about, I'll tell you a bit about that in a short while. My name is Professor Mark Griffiths, and I'm the Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Regional Partnerships, Engagement and Innovation. It's a long title, I'm trying to shorten it, at UWE Bristol. And I am delighted to be here tonight opening this event because it's positioned, I believe, at the intersection of our region's most urgent challenges and our deepest aspirations. In the Southwest and across the UK, health and care systems face rising demand, evolving workforce pressures and persistent inequalities. But beyond difficulties, we're also seeing opportunities. The opportunity to re-image who leads, how they lead, and how positive change is made and, importantly, sustained. Tonight's panel does exactly that. We bring together voices drawn from creative practice, from community leadership, policy, and lived experience, all of whom illustrate and illuminate how leadership in health and care is shifting from a narrow, individual-centric model to something far more inclusive, co-productive, and rooted in identity and story. The format of this evening will be, following my introduction, I will pass over to Corine, who I will introduce in a moment formally, and then there'll be a conversation. That conversation will last approximately an hour, 50 minutes to an hour, and then we will open up for some questions afterwards as well. And then there'll be some closing remarks. That's the format for this evening. And then afterwards, there's, I believe, a few refreshments in the space just past the main bar there. This evening, however, we will explore how leadership emerges from the lived experience of those who use it. How we work and live alongside the care system. How voices that have too often been marginalised become powerful agents of change. Identity matters. How leaders whose experiences reflect the global majority bring authenticity, insight, and yes, resilience into spaces that were never designed for them. Storytelling and representation are not mere add-ons, but the very language of transformation, how sharing voice and narrative can expose inequality, challenge norms, and open structural change. For UWE as a civic institution, and for the region that we serve, these themes are deeply aligned with our mission. Building partnerships, engaging with communities, and driving innovation require more than just new technologies, more than just new funding. They require new mindsets. They require that we expand who holds the power, how decisions are made, and how change is lived in our cities and, importantly, our neighbourhoods. So tonight, I invite you to listen deeply, reflect on what you may take for granted about leadership, particularly in the health and care space, ask bold questions, and consider how you influence health and care in your own context. Because thriving while leading is simply not about sustainability or maintaining the status quo. It's about stepping into new possibilities, grounded in equity, connection, and authenticity. UWE Equity, as I mentioned earlier, is a positive action coaching programme that we hold at UWE Bristol for global majority students, providing personal and professional development opportunities. As part of these programmes, there are speaker events linked to our Bristol Distinguished Address series. And last year's event, for example, was Crossing Generations with Dr. Edson Burton and guests. There are also targeted initiatives for our global majority students in the form of insight sessions, webinars, and for undergraduate students in the option to undertake coaching skills and sessions together with mentors. So, without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce our panel this evening. Our host tonight is Corine Walker. This is Corine, a Bristol-based writer, director, creative producer and performer. The rest of this evening's panel include Sophie Chester-Glyn, who is the Managing Director of a local care organisation. Sophie is also Sophie is also Director of Coproduce Care, a community interest company which aims at democratising the social care debate by supporting the care sector to influence care policy and law. And then we also have Councillor Lorraine Francis. I almost forgot the councillor bit then, sorry. A qualified social worker, a former alumni of UE Bristol, and is also now a qualified therapist. So, there are no planned fire alarms this evening. If a fire alarm does go off, it's for real. People will come in and usher us out to a safe location. This session is being recorded this evening, so we are live streaming, but it will be recorded and we will be able to play this back afterwards, pending any technological failures. All right, but without further ado, and to say a bit more about who they are, I'm going to pass over to Corine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that introduction, and great to hear more about everything that UE is doing. So yeah, it is lovely to see you all here. Thank you for joining us here in the Watershed, and also to those who are joining online. This is being live streamed, so we are on our best behaviour. My name is Corine Walker. I am a Bristol-based writer, director, producer and performer. I make work that is across theatre and also film. And last year, I wrote, produced and performed in a theatre show called The Fight Well Project, which was all about exploring Black women's experiences, engaging with the healthcare system. This was a theatre project that was really close to my heart. I'd been working on it for several years because I felt very strongly about how Black women's outcomes within the healthcare system are a lot poorer. And we have those statistics, yes, and there's a lot of talk about that. But what does it actually mean practically, and what is the impact on Black women? But I wanted to create a theatre show because that is my practice. I don't work in health. I'm a creative soul, and I thought, how can I use kind of like my tools to create something that hopefully can create a wider impact? So that's what myself and the team did. Tried to create a show which spoke about those issues, but did it in a way that actually it meant that the audience left with hope and feeling uplifted rather than the heaviness that that topic can often attract. And I'm happy to speak about that project more in detail to anyone that wants to after this in Waterside 3 with the post-discussion refreshments, because I'm very passionate and really happy to talk about it. But it's not about me this evening. I am merely the host, the vehicle to ask the questions to these wonderful women. And I'm just really, really excited to hear what they've got to say, how you got started, your journeys, and hear your insights and just all the gems that I know that you're going to share. So if I could pass on to you both to introduce yourselves, just briefly, because we'll dive in a lot more into your journey as we go. Can I start with you?
Yeah, of course. Can you all hear me okay? Great. So yeah, I'm Sophie Chester-Glyn, and I wear several different hats, as we all do. So my main one is I'm a director of a care company, care organisation, and we provide care for people with learning disabilities, mental health needs, and older people now. So across Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire, and I've been doing that for quite a few years. I started off with my mum. She was a psychiatric nurse, and so she started that off, and then I went and did the whole university thing, worked elsewhere, and then came to run the company with my then partner, now husband, when she got sick. And a few years ago I started Coproduce Care, which is a non-profit, and really I just wanted to highlight issues that social care had. I felt really frustrated that not enough people understood what social care was, what it did, and how important it was to the whole health and care system. And also I was studying social care law, and I just thought there was a massive disconnect between what I was learning at university and what the workforce knew about their ability to change and influence law and policy. So that's what Coproduce Care does. And then I've also joined different boards. So I'm trustee at the Care Workers Charity, and I also on the board of the independent advisory group to the social care workforce race equality programme. So yeah, a few different things that I'm up to.
Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening everyone. My name is Lorraine Francis, and as was said earlier, I am a local councillor, and I've been a councillor now for 4 years. So I had 2 terms, 21, and then re-elected in 24. So that's my political arm. I am a social worker by trade. I'm still registered, and up until last year, I was working as a mental health social worker in South Gloucestershire. In addition to that, I am now currently the chair of adult social care. So we have within the city a committee system. So I chair that particular committee. So it's all connected from my journey into social work, and now I am chairing the whole shebang, really. So that's a real privilege to be in that position. Yeah, and I guess as we go along, I'm also a sort of manic or avid, I don't know, manic socialist, not communist, as somebody suggested the other day, and I'm often out on the picket line, but pushing back against the fascism, because that's what I do. So it's kind of like I've got many different hats, and they're all extreme, but altogether it makes me one holistic person. So not everybody agrees with pushing back on being anti-racist, but it's extremely important to me. And yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned co-production, because Bristol have introduced a co-production policy so that we can be more aligned with the people drawing down on care. So it's a big thing, and we're the only local authority at the moment that's in the southwest definitely doing that. So yeah, that's me, a little bit me.
Incredible women, right? Yes. We're just going to dive straight in, because you just introducing yourselves, I had 10,000 more questions I want to ask you. But let's start at the beginning, because you are both, working in several different areas. But I feel like the common thread that I'm hearing from your work is that you're wanting to make change and make impact for people who are maybe more vulnerable or underrepresented in society. And I wondered around, did you always want to go down the pathways in terms of the careers and the kind of jobs that you do or roles that you have? And has it surprised you where you've sort of ended up? Lorraine, I'll come to you first.
I think a good friend of mine that we've been friends since primary school would tell you that I have always wanted to be a social worker, even when I didn't know what a social worker was. So that was bizarre. I do not know. But from the age of about 10, I said, I'm going to be a social worker. But that actually genuinely stemmed from my background of our family was incredibly poor, and there was different types of trauma that comes along with being first generation migrants or immigrants in this country. So there was something about wanting to have an impact, like you say. And as early as 15, I think it was, I started to volunteer for Bernardo's, because whilst I walked around with cardboard in my shoes because my mum couldn't afford new ones, and that's a true story, I still felt that I wanted to give back to people less fortunate than myself, so sort of figured that one out. So it was a journey of love, and whilst I've not stayed in social work for 35 years consistently, I have dipped in and out of it. And my last run was 24, when I've sort of finished my last job as a social worker. So it's been a journey of love from as far back as I can remember.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm just loving the kind of, you've always looked out for others from as early as you can remember, always wanting to give back and help. Yeah, that's amazing, and testament to your career and your journey. And I can't wait to dive back into that some more. So same question to you, Sophie, about, was this something that you'd always wanted to do? Has it surprised you where you've ended up, or was it just always the goal for you?
It's a funny one, because I almost feel like it wasn't something I thought I was in my head I was always going to do, because I did a law degree and then I worked in London. But I think it was always in my system. It was always in my blood, if you like. So Mum came over from Guyana, which is kind of like South America, Windrush generation, and she always tells the story of like she came over with a suitcase and £5, which actually was quite a lot of money back then, but it sounds like quite dramatic right now. And she just had this vision. She was one of 11, and they grew up in like adverse poverty. I remember her saying her mum would just give them sugar water to go to school, and they couldn't concentrate at school because they were so hungry. But she always had this ambition to do well and to look after others, I think being part of a big family. And then she came over here and obviously answered the call. The country needed more nurses, and she came trained as a nurse, really, really very young. And then she wanted to specialise, so then she went into psychiatric nursing. And then from there, she just didn't like the big institutions and how they looked after people in mental health hospitals. And she just felt she could do it better in our home, effectively. So that's when she started doing something called adult placement schemes, and it's called Shared Lives now. So it's a bit like fostering in your own home, but adults with mental health needs. So I remember living with Dorothy, Mavis, Philip from the age of 3. I think we moved into our own house where we didn't have, it wasn't work basically, when I was like 12. But it just felt like family. For me, it wasn't weird. I was just with a big family, and I would help do the breakfast before going on the school bus, and then they were just always around. Like, it was fine. And then she did really well, and then moved on to turn that into a care home, a small one, and then we moved somewhere else and did the same. So even though I didn't grow up thinking, oh, this is what I want to do, I can't really imagine doing anything else. And I absolutely love it. And I think people that I work with who's maybe they've gone into other industries and they've come into social care, they love it because the atmosphere is all about love and support and getting people from a really dark place into society again and helping them live the lives that we probably take for granted. Just being able to go outside for some people is a massive achievement. And, we've been able to support people who have been sectioned to get married and buy a car and live in a flat and live independently. And just being able to do that for people, I think, is quite a thing. So I couldn't really imagine doing anything else. I love it. And then I've just had opportunities then to help others to, look at race inequality and consider the workforce and how they're sometimes undervalued. And that's really made me passionate to do more in that space. So, yeah, it's kind of like it probably was always my path, but I never really realised that's what I was doing. I just carried on doing what I love, yeah.
Amazing. Well, yeah, you grew up with that kind of modelled for you, so it kind of feels like, how could you not almost have gone down that pathway? That's great. I guess, because you touched on it a little bit there, about the inequalities that inherently exist within your work. And you, Sophie, touched on there about within the workforce especially. So it would be great to hear from you a bit more around, for your workforce, the inequalities within care specifically, do they make an impact on your workforce, or how does that kind of make an impact on how you run your co-produce care and run your caring organisations?
Yeah, I think it really has, and it's from my involvement in the advisory group for the social care res, that I realised how bad things were, because sometimes when you're in your own organisation and you try the best, you think everyone's doing the same thing. So what the res does, and there's a NHS res, and then in 2021 the Department of Health and Social Care and the Department of Education decided to run a programme for social care, but only for local authorities. So I think they signed up 23 local authorities to start with, and now they've got like 70-something local authorities, Bristol being one of them, who signed up to the social care res, and it monitors things like, you know, who is going through disciplinaries, how many people are in like really good positions of leadership, and it sees where people are. And then once you've got that benchmark, you realise how much you have to do you realise where the inequalities are, basically, and how much you've got to build on it. And you know, some of the stuff that they brought out is like, so global majority staff, this is for like social care res across the country. So global majority staff are 46% less likely to be appointed from a shortlist than staff with a white ethnic background, and staff from global majority background are 48% less likely to be in senior management, and also we are so 19% more likely to enter the formal disciplinary process. And I just think, you know, when you've got those statistics, and I think a lot of people suffer in silence. And then, so yeah, it did make me think about my own organisation, like what I need to do. And I was speaking to someone, as I speak to staff, and I take staff out for lunch, and we had to have these lunch and learn sessions. And I was speaking to one of our staff from India, and I said to her, you know, how are you doing? She stepped up because we needed a manager, and the manager moved on, so she was doing a bit of that role. And she was amazing, really appreciated her. And I said, you know, when have you had a day off? And she said, oh no, I'm fine, I've just had a couple of days the other week. And I said, yeah, but when have you had a holiday? And she said, oh, I'm going to have one in Christmas. And I said, you really need to have one sooner than that. Like, people get into the grind set of just working really hard and just not giving themselves time to have a break. And I think that has to do some damage to your nervous system and your mental well-being. And I've seen, you know, from other research, how sometimes you have global majority staff are always asked for extra shifts, always asked to do certain really hard tasks, and sometimes they're just so willing to do it and make a good impression that nobody's really properly checking in. So I think, you know, what we've been doing is putting extra checks in, really almost forcing people to take time off, and coming together as an organisation with people from Global Majority in our staff team to say, how can we help you to have a better work-life balance? So there's a lot of things to do, but I think looking at the metrics, seeing who's going in higher positions, who's going through disciplinaries, who are you hiring, I think a lot of it starts with the data, and connecting with people and their experiences, and then working from there. But it has to be at a high level. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's amazing because it's great to see you modelling that as a global majority leader, right? Because I think that's the thing. If you have that lived experience yourself, you are the people that these statistics are sort of referencing in terms of, you know, your characteristics. This is why it's so important to have people at these levels, so that we can make that change. Everyone should be doing it, of course. But yeah, that's why it's just what you've said there, that you're this is a case study to why it's so important that we have people in these roles. I just had a quick question. You said about RES. Now, what is RES?
So that is social care, forget about that, SC, Workforce Race Equality Standard.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what that one is, yeah.
Great. Maybe everyone else knew that, but I didn't, so we're learning here. And for you, Lorraine, obviously you are working in doing a lot of work in social work, but also in politics. And so I was interested in what are the biggest lessons that you have gained working in these two areas, and actually, are they more similar than people might think, or are they quite different?
Politics and social work, are they similar, different, or same thing? I think it depends on how you look at it. So politics as a separate entity is one thing, but then you have politics within the social care environment, and you have the politics of disproportionality. So when the data that you've just sort of read out, that plays a huge part in some of the experiences of social workers within the industry. And there is a question as to whether there is a politically motivated outcome from people from global majorities in regards to 90%, 60% of people from global majority backgrounds who may actually be disciplined or enter the first stages of disciplinary, the actual data then says we're less likely to be found guilty of something. So you actually get pushed into a disciplinary much quicker, but you actually then found innocent. But by then you've totally disintegrated because you can't function any longer, and you've been stripped of your dignity. You know, you've been stripped of all your sort of pride in what you do. So it's a knock-on effect. So you could look at it politically. Is it politically motivated? Is there something hidden? But my approach to both being a politician and being a social worker is pretty much the same, in that I focus on justice, and I want, in the political realm, I stood up to that position as to standing as a parliamentary candidate 10 years ago, and the reason I did that wasn't because I had an expectation of winning, because there was no funding, but it was more just to raise the profile of me as a black woman entering politics in Bristol. So when I'm a social worker, I still see myself as being representative of people from all walks of life, from being a woman and also being from the global majority background and being Bristolian and etc. So we can just keep adding on to that. And I think my experiences of injustice as a practitioner was very, very much based around having a situation where I had to challenge the system about how people like myself was being trained or developed to elevate oneself, and that not happening. And then that became a huge issue for me and the local authority. So when I went back to the local authority as chair of adult social care, it was kind of like, oh, I'm back. I'm back, and I'm back in such a way that I can now make a difference. And that's what my political head in my role as adult social care is very much about. Are we doing the right thing for the people drawing down on care? Are we doing the right thing for the staff within the industry? Are we making a difference? You know, so that's I see the two things being connected, and they're not separate being, because then if it was separate, then I wouldn't be authentic. Mm-hmm. So there's something about lived experience, being from a global majority background, but being really politically minded and making sure that everything I do has an outcome. And so I think they're very much connected.
I agree. From what you've said, I agree. The second part to that question was just what are the biggest lessons that you've kind of taken from your kind of career, I suppose, but specifically within social work and politics. Yeah, it's a big question, I know.
But I think my biggest lesson is that you never stop learning, no matter how old you are, but you never stop having to deal with people who want to dismantle what you've done. So there's a real challenge. If you ever watch, you probably got better things to do, but if you ever watch me chairing adult social care, one of the things that I would say last year repeatedly, I would say, through the chair. Basics, through the chair. Can you ask your questions through the chair? And I would be doing that all the time, because it's a sign of disrespect, isn't it? If you just talk out and you don't recognise me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of that. So my journey, what I've learned is, don't be complacent, and do not assume that because you're there that you are respected, because it's not an automatic thing. I've got to work at being the best person that I can be, and then it is up to you to determine whether I am being effective in what I'm doing. But as long as I remain authentic and genuine in what I'm doing, hopefully I'm delivering on that lesson, on that level, so that I don't have to feel I'm an imposter. I really hate that term, because I'm not an imposter. I've earned the journey. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just add something there? Only because one of the things that really frustrated me was the fact that I literally wasn't being heard in meetings. So it's a similar sort of thing, but these were like online. So I remember, and it was totally different, because I was a governor on for SGS and other things, so I knew it wasn't like an organisational problem of an organisation. It was like people not recognising my voice, and I'd suggest something on the call, and then there'd be tumbleweed, like no, nothing, and then I'd be looking at, am I on mute? But I've been talking for a while, no one said anything, and then about 15 minutes into it, I remember for one instance, it was a white woman who said exactly the same thing as me, but slightly just in her own words. And the chair was like, oh, that's a really good idea. Can we put that as an action point for next time? And I was like, okay, maybe that's just me. And then I was in a face-to-face meeting and I made another suggestion, and it was around equality and stuff. And everyone just went, And then the CEO then made the suggestion like 10 minutes later, and then everyone was like, yeah, that's a really good idea, well done, we'll put that down. And the frustration, it's just like I'm literally not valued as having a voice, even though I'm in a place where I can use that voice, and I've got 4 degrees, and I've got stuff going on, but I'm still not being heard. But I think that's just made me, like you said, you're just adamant that I will be respected in this space. I will say, hold on again, that's exactly what I said earlier. And it's just having that confidence to go back, because it's a real thing where people just do not hear your voice. It's crazy.
So how do you, you did say a little bit there, but for both of you, how do you, because it's the frustration and the rage, right, of like, there's so much there as to why you're not being heard, and none of it's good, right? The reasons behind it. So how do you kind of tackle that? Or like, how do you manage those emotions and like channel it positively? Because it would be very easy to go, you know what, I'm out. Like, how do you kind of use that to keep going? Or what are your tools?
Well, I know for me, just keep putting my hand up. I want to speak until people hear me. And now when I go into meetings, if I'm like I don't know, my social battery is really low and I'm a bit quiet, they go, Sophie, did you want to add anything? They're now coming to me because they know that I have something today to say, and it's probably going to add value. So it's about, we talk about representation. The more that you're in certain spaces, then people do ask for your opinion. It's a bit just annoying that you have to do that, whereas other people would just exist and say something, and people take it seriously. But yeah, just persistence, really. Yeah, definitely.
So an example to answer that, this happened on Monday, and a member is a politician. So a member asked a question, but hadn't directed the question at anyone in particular. So I answered the question because it was within my realm to do so. And when I finished answering the question, she actually said to me, I wasn't asking you.
Wow.
I was asking the director, the DAS. And then that's what she said. So my response to that, in how I handled it, I said, would you like to answer the question? And he said, you've kind of answered it. So he didn't say a lot. He just sort of said enough just to placate her. But that was how I dealt with it in that instant, rather than, I have been known to get a bit... Well,
you've got to do it. Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't have got to.
I've learned to sort of think, how will it serve me if I get irritated? So I have to look at it like that, and it won't in that moment. Because if I said, but I just answered, then I've actually given away my power then. So I just, acknowledged the actual director, and he responded. But that is the type of stuff that I actually still encounter as a chair. But it's okay, because I've got a smile on my face, because it's a case of no matter what you say, I'm still sat here, isn't it? So at least for the next 2 years, hopefully. So there's nothing you can do unless I do something disastrous. So yeah, that's my response.
No, and props to you both for the work that you're doing and keeping going, because the mental gymnastics, even in that one interaction, is a lot.
Absolutely.
So thank you to you both. I was wondering, actually, I wanted to flip it a bit, because we've heard about some of the things that are challenges. I'd like to hear maybe an example of something that you really feel like in your roles you're really proud of in terms of it having an impact on society, or just it might be something really small or something big, something that just something that you think I'm really happy that I'm in this role because it has meant that I could do this. Lorraine, you're nodding very confidently there, so I'll go to you first.
Yeah, so there has been some positives over the last 16 months as 14 months of chairing, but I think the biggest thing I'm working on, and it's really important because without being the chair, I couldn't say this or do this. But we are going to be rolling out, making Bristol an age-friendly city and a city for people with experiencing different disabilities, so that every part of the city must recognise you if you are an older person, if you are in a wheelchair. So if you're looking at transport, you need to consider older people and people with disabilities and so on. So that's something that will be rolled out before 2028. So I'm really, really proud that I'm pushing that, and it hasn't been done before. It's verbally done. Yes, we are, age-friendly city, but actually demonstrating what that looks like and how that feels is going to be what I'm going to be focusing on. So I'm really proud of that. And I am proud of being on the front line and getting abused by by racists. I am, because it's something really powerful to be able to say, I'm here, I am standing up for Bristol, and because we want Bristol to be diverse, don't we? And that's what makes us unique, because we have a really diverse city, and I stand up for that. I really passionately believe in that, so yeah, that's what I'm proud of as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So much, really. I don't know. Same as you. I'm proud that we're able to be in these spaces. I think because it is really hard to be in these spaces. And to your point earlier about how do you navigate it, I mustn't leave out the importance of allyship, because when you're doing it on your own, it can just feel so not just lonely but frustrating. I remember being in a board meeting and I'd said something specific. I really was passionate about getting this strategy, this DIB strategy, and I just felt like I was really selling it and getting tumbleweed. And then somebody else came, a white woman who's also on the board, wasn't happy that everyone dismissed it, and she literally said, "No, I just want to support Sophie in what she said. This is what she's trying to get across. Can we please just address this?" And she should have had to say that, but I think the awkwardness of her having to say that, that put everything to bed. Do you know what I mean? And then that helped going forward. As long as that she was also in that room, she wasn't going to allow what I've just said to just be swept under the carpet. But yeah, no, so one of the things that we do at Coproduce Care, we try and get the voices of care workers to policymakers. So we'll do reports if there's anything that they're going out for information for the sector. We will go to our network, and we've done that with bits of mental health law that's gone for consultation, and we will talk to people and say, how are you using the code of practice, for example, and then we'll feed that back. And we've also responded to the Health and Social Care Select Committee. They've had some reports, and there's been an APPG, and they're asking about professionalising the social care workforce. And it's just really good to get those lived experiences to policymakers, because I think sometimes they really struggle to know where they should be going with things because they're just not connected, and there's not always the time or the space for everyone working in care to respond to a lengthy consultation. So I do love that part of work that we do. But also at a local level, I always try to mentor or coach somebody. So I've worked with Bristol, or the Black Southwest Network, and sometimes they're looking for somebody to give a talk to people who want to start up a care organisation, a local one. And so I do those every year when they reach out. And there's just so much passion in the city. It's amazing. And then I also mentored a lady whose son had autism, and she realised, she's from the Somali community, and she realised that actually there was a cultural issue with people in her community not really accepting autism or really understand how they can get help, just thinking they just needed to deal with it. And because of her experience, she was like, I'm going to start an agency that with people from my community that can support people in my community whose children or young people might have autism. I mean, she really didn't need my mentoring, but it was amazing to support her and say, this is where you go, this is how you navigate the CQC, with what documents do you need. So that was amazing. I loved doing that. And then Bristol Works ran a scheme where a career coach, so you could go into schools and be a career coach for 5 years to a young person in care. And so it was good to work with young people, and I helped my young person get work experience at an accountancy firm, and just doing things like that. I love doing that, yeah.
Amazing. I'm just going to remind everyone that we will be opening up audience questions in a few minutes. So if you've got any questions, do start to think of those now, just giving you a bit of a warning. Obviously, we are here in Bristol, and I think we all have got a very long relationship with the city. So it would be great to hear what you think. Who are the role models for you in the city? Who are the other people who are doing great work, either in sort of a leadership role or just within the sectors that you work in, or others? I think it's always nice to kind of shout out all the other brilliant work that's happening in our city. Sophie, do you want to go first?
I've got such a long list. I'm like, who should I choose? So I quite like Cleo Lake's stuff that she does. I mean, you're definitely a role model for me, just to say that. I think you're amazing. Because I was so she was the Lord Mayor a few years back, and I know she does research, and she's got this dance, sort of like active dance that she does, which is using dance as an art form of communicating and telling stories. And I just remember seeing her at Malcolm X once, and she came in, she had like a 3-month-old son, and she was like, right, okay, somebody look after him, I'm going to go and lead this dance session, and also talk about how dance and music can really transport people back to what our ancestors, how they used dance to get through really difficult times. And she got the whole audience doing it as well. And there was just so much message to what she did, and I'll never forget that. How I think there's so many people that can just have so many skills, and really exceptional. And then because my mum is a nurse, or wasn't us, she passed away in 2010. Princess Campbell comes to mind because Mum worked in Glenside, and I think she worked in Glenside, and Mum talked about like those microaggressions that she received. And
can you talk a bit more about Princess Campbell for people who might not know?
So she came over, and she was one of the first ward sisters, and she was a campaigner as well. She's from Jamaica, my dad's from Jamaica, and just making strides for people, and opening doors and being a real inspiration. And I think some of the things that she had to suffer, and the discrimination, it was just so common for other people as well. And I remember Mum talking about one time she was with some other nurses, and they asked her, how do you know when to have a bath? Because you always look dirty. And it's these awful things that they went through in that time. And despite all of that, they then went on to do amazing things. So, those are just a couple of my inspirational people locally.
I mean, because we could go on and on and on, right? And I think it's great to hear that you have a long list so that people know there are a lot of us out here doing amazing things. And I'm privileged to have this conversation with you both, who are definitely inspirations, role models within the city. And you are going to be on my lists from now on. Lorraine.
Yes. So mine will sound like a bit of a cliche. But genuinely, I think my mum was and remains a role model. She passed away in 23. And the reason I'm saying that is not because it's a cliche. And there were times when she drove me up the wall and back down the other side of it. But she came to this country back in the 60s, I think it was, and I think she raised her children, and she was part of a system that didn't particularly value her contribution to society. And I think she never stopped looking after us and caring about us and making sure we got to where we needed to be. And respectfully, there was some domestic violence in her life, and what she didn't do, and this was part of my, see, I'm going to get all, so part of my journey was that she stood by us, and she never sort of put us into care, she never walked away from us. And I think there was something about me wanting to be in that care field was a lot to do with that, because she never gave up, and she persevered, and she had indomitable spirit, and she was tough, and she was robust, and even when in her 80s she would walk from Easton, where she lived, to Montpellier, which is probably about a mile and a half maybe walk, and bring food to the older church sisters. It's like she's in her 80s and she was still doing that. And so there was something about her from childhood right through to her end of life where she was always feeding somebody. And if you ever went to my mum's house, even when she ended up in a care home very briefly before she passed away, she would say to you, "Do you want an orange?" Do you know what I mean? She was always offering you food, and even though her memory had gone, she would say, "Do you want something to eat?" Because that was how she was. So she really is inspiring. And I think the reason I'm also saying that is because I think sometimes we forget that we are a product of a system that is reluctant to give us credit and to value us. So we have parents that make a huge contribution, and I think sometimes we forget how much of a role they play in our lives. And it's all races. It's not just the black community. In general, we probably don't value our parents as much as we should, and we look outward to say that person is inspiring. But I can think of people as well. But I think there's something about her journey and her longevity and her, her spirit that lives on. So she's my role model.
And what was her name?
Myrtle.
Myrtle.
Myrtle May.
Myrtle
and
May.
My middle name is May, so I have the May in my middle.
You are most definitely your mother's daughter, for sure.
But
And I'm
she's
so
lovely.
happy that you have the space to talk about her today.
Thank you. Yeah.
Um,
And I didn't cry, because I always cry so I'm
No.
getting better. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
That is fine.
Yeah.
Emotion is should be welcomed and should be celebrated. I feel like as leaders as well, showing emotion is so healthy, and we need to normalize this more.
Absolutely.
So you do your thing. We are almost at the end of the time. I can't believe. But I would love to hear, to kind of close us out of this conversation about, we've talked a lot about your roles. You both wear many different hats, and you kind of, you're working across lots of different roles. How do you take care of yourselves? How do you look after both yourselves and the people that you work with? Are there things that you put in place just to be able to continue to do your best work? Because you've spoken about the impact and the toll that it can take. So it would be great to kind of get some, just some insights into your kind of processes outside of that to kind of keep doing this vital work that you're doing.
It's been a lot the last few years, and obviously Mum died when I was really young, and then my stepdad died a few years ago, then my dad died a couple of years ago. It was just like, do I attract death? And they were all really traumatic passings as well. I really struggled to get over my dad's, and then it's literally like I woke up on the 1st of January this year, and I was like, I need to switch things around. And then you realise that you need to stop giving so much to everyone around you, and you need to think about what is it that I need to make sure my mental health doesn't collapse, and then kind of seeing what I needed for myself, which was, so I recently read a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits, and it's about putting in place ways that you don't give yourself excuses to turn up for yourself. And, I had 3 kids, 3 C-sections, the body was falling apart, and I was just like, that is not okay, because that's not what I want. So I was just like, right, go to the gym. And, I read that book. It's talking about habit stacking, and making sure I've got a plan, making it easy for myself, and then just putting yourself first, which is what I'm trying to say to people, especially in the care sphere. Like, you need to look after yourself. So really doing that, and just reaching out to your support system. So every time I see a member of staff and they're like, oh, I've got this to do, I've got that, especially the managers, I say, well, let's just take stock. Who have we got around us? Who have we got in the office? Who can do this? Who can do that? Does that really need to be done right now? Can we just say, well, we're going to postpone that audit till a bit later? And just helping people know it's not all on your shoulders. You've literally got a whole team there. You need to use it, and being really strict. And I'm still working on that culture of, having to turn up and do everything for everyone. And that was another thing that I had when I was speaking to someone. I was like, when you do switch off, do you have the company phone? And she was like, no. Well, I do have a company phone, but I leave that, and then I give people my personal phone, so if they need me, then they can ring me. And I said, yeah, but you're off. I said, you need to stop that, block people from work, because there's a whole team that I've built to do that stuff when you're off.
Yeah.
And she was getting itchy. She's like, yeah, but I just want to be there for people. I was like, no, I need you. You need you. Your body needs you to switch off. So just, leave the phone at home, block work. We'll sort things out. And then go from there. But you have to, as a leader, I think, be really intentional about telling people, because this grind set sort of thing that people get into, especially after the pandemic, when social care was really left to just fend for yourself, people are still in that that fight mode. And I recently ran a trauma-informed conference online last week, and some really great speakers, and they talked about nervous system and how we internalize stress and how that then turns into medical problems and issues. And I was like, we need to really look at each other and put things in place so that we support and just check in, have an accountability partner. That was one thing that was suggested. So someone in the office, if you need to get up and go out for lunch rather than have it at your desk, someone just teams you and say, are you out the office yet? Okay, you're out, good. So there's a lot of work to do around it. But I think, the more you can help yourself, you're probably the same with the pressures you go through, the more then you can see how others are stressing and point that out. So yeah, it's good.
Sounds like it's been a real process for you to kind of get to that point. Yeah,
for sure.
I'm glad that you found that for yourself. Thank you. Also for your wider team. It's so important as a leader. So thank you for giving us that insight. Lorraine, same question for you.
It's work in progress. Work in progress. I'm trying to get back into reading again, because I used to read a lot, and I know that's a big deficit that I'm trying to address. I have bought a book recently, which is Pocketbook Guide to Neurodiversity. I mean, I know it's it's not easy reading, but I genuinely did it because I was having I was having some little bit of conflict with somebody who's neurodiverse. It's not a service user, just to make sure that's clear. So I did it for my own educational purposes. And I used to jog lots when I was younger, and I've joined Whitehall Running Club. So I joined about 5 weeks ago. So I won't say running. I am moving around the track. Look, I'm 59, give me a break. And so I've joined the running club because just being outside and actually doing it, even though everybody else is like, I don't mind being right at the back, because there's something about just being outdoors and actually doing it, because outside is not, as in green spaces, is really important, and I fight tooth and nail to protect green spaces. So if I'm not out in the green space, then being outdoors is great. And I've just stopped eating refined sugar because it's bad for me, and I now don't eat wheat again and gluten because it's bad for me, and I knew that. So I am actually trying to do that healthy gut stuff, but genuinely because I've got allergy. And just being, because I go to the gym, that doesn't count. but
She goes at 4 a.m.
I know, because the only time I can fit it in. It's the only time I can fit it in. But I'm trying to just, like you say, be kind. So I meet friends like once a month. I try and do something nice together, just to catch up on what's happening in our lives and stuff. So yeah, just keeping fit has always been a big thing for me. So I'm sort of trying to self-care, and if you notice, it is all about me. Do you see what I mean? Like I've said, is what I'm doing, as opposed to not necessarily extending to others, because I do that like you do 24/7, you know. So I'm sort of trying to do the stuff. So even though it's not big stuff, it's enough to make me feel that I am valuing myself as well. Do you know what I mean? I'm pouring love into me.
You've got to pour into yourself before you can pour into others.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the cup will just run dry.
Absolutely, definitely.
Thank you so much to you both.
Thank you.
Going to open up to questions. I see a hand already up at the back. So yeah, we'll just wait for the mic so that everyone can hear and online can hear as well.
Hi, hello. Thank you both. You're both inspirational. And Lorraine, I've been in close proximity with you for some time now with the Green Party, and I totally admire your resilience through the years, and putting yourself forward to represent others, and that's amazing. So my question is kind of two in one, which is as you're both paving the way and what you're doing in Carbon and the experiences and the hurdles that you're still, coming up against, what are your thoughts for, the younger generation coming through, and or maybe what tips would you offer? Although I can't see many younger people in the audience here today. Oh, hello, there's one. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, younger people. I am incredibly passionate about younger people and the role that they will play as in society as we move forward. I work part-time in a school as well, because I'm actually a therapist as well. So, and the reason I gave up my job working for Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Partnership was to enable me to do what I like doing, which is to inspire younger people. And it might not sound like it's inspiring young people, but I can assure you that being in that school environment and seeing young people who may not necessarily have as much as they need, just being a role model there. So even when I'm not being a therapist, I'm actually always reaching out to the young people in the corridors and just being nice to them. And often they're not used to necessarily just people just saying, "How you doing today?" And they used to look at me really strange, you know what I mean? I'm okay. But now they're getting used to it because I do it all the time. So now they're actually just, "I'm okay, miss. Yeah, hello." Do you know what I mean? And some of them will actually go out of their way to say hello as well. So it's about just we talked about being invisible. It's about just seeing young people. And one of the other things I'm doing as a politician, what I'm trying to do locally is I'm trying to raise money for a youth facility, because we don't have one in where I am for the young people. And there's a lot of young white boys who are just wandering around, not doing much. And I think that they have been a forgotten generation of young boys. So one of the things I want to do, and I'm working quite closely with a local business on the high street and another youth organisation to sort of raise money so that we can actually have a mobile youth bus in the ward so that young people can be part of that. And I've raised £500 so far, which is just a contribution to the overall pot of money that we need. So they're incredibly important, and they're one of my targets to between now and 28, so that we have a facility that's up and running, because we need to inspire young people as well. And one final thing is, when I've been out on the I keep calling it the front line, but dealing with sort of inequalities and people marching to take away people's equality, is that a couple of young boys, they're young to me, they were 22, came over and we had about 20-minute conversations. This was the 5th of October. We had a really good conversation because they were saying, what's all this about? You know, all the migrants coming over and stuff like that. But the fact that we were able to actually converse, I think we developed a shared understanding in that moment. And I think what they will do is they will remember the conversation. So whilst I was less tolerant to some, whenever I see the younger ones, I will reach out to them and have a conversation. So that communication and that kind of pouring into them is incredibly important.
Oh, this is wonderful. I feel like I want to clap people. I do. All of the stuff. Yeah, so I think it's a really good question, actually, because I was a governor at a college for a while, and I was always challenging the other governors about our presence with younger people. So just being there in the boardroom, I don't think was enough. Like, we needed to get out there and talk to them and say who we are. And that's, you know, it was quite a hard message to get through. But I suppose, you know, wherever I get an opportunity as well, I just try and bring people in. So we're always taking an intern into our organisation. I try to, you know, career coach where I can. We take apprentices, and honestly, people who start as an apprentice stay with us. They're great. So it's just having faith in younger people. And then we've got an outstanding care home in Yate, and the registered manager there is like 24, 25. And she is incredible, and it's hard because she has to manage, you know, 40, 50-year-olds, but she just gets through it, and she's got that tenacity. She's needed a lot of coaching. So in my organisation, we run a scheme called Beam Me Up, which is basically we take people who are, you know, high flyers, but they just don't have the confidence. And there's a lot of people in social care who are absolutely incredible, but people just think that people just want white bums, that they don't. It's the most regulated sector there is, and there's so much training and stuff going on. So I then, like, a senior manager will go and coach them and train them, and she was one of those. And then now she's a manager, and you know, it does help by bringing young people on because it's a different perspective. She's got fantastic ideas as well that she brings. She's got amazing energy. And then where I can, I'll go into like colleges and just speak about what we do. I'll take her and a few other apprentices with us. There's probably more we could do in that space, but like, I'm really proud of what we do. And there was the local care awards a couple of weeks ago, and we had like 4 awards from that, and it's just like so good to see so much of our team you know, progress and get recognised for it. And some of them had started when they were really young with us as well. So I think it is about presence, getting out there, bringing people along, and try and give them the confidence where they don't have it, isn't it? Yeah, it was a great question. Mm-hmm.
I have a question that's come in online that I'd love to ask, which is, with AI moving at pace within the healthcare sector, how do you envision the impact this would have on our global majority community and colleagues? I know that it's going to be different because you're obviously coming at it from different angles. You might have seen the impact already. Who would like to take this?
Oh, God.
I'm a bit
Big
contentious
question.
about AI. I
Go
think
for
it's
it.
much to do about nothing. I mean, it's like when we went from phones to mobiles kind of thing. It just makes us better and more efficient at what we do. There's a lot of money there's a lot of tech companies trying to extract a lot of money from the government at the moment in health and social care, saying that they're going to reduce costs and do, you know, basically they're the panacea for all problems everywhere, and I'm just not seeing it. At the end of the day, it's a person-to-person relationship you need to have. A few things might be good. It's not at a stage that it's going to replace workers. It's just going to make us more efficient. I've not seen anything particularly worrying in my sphere for global majority staff. I've seen our global majority staff absolutely love it and take to it very quickly, and being really responsive to it. Less resistant actually than some others. I think it's just with, I think some of the imaging work that you actually are doing in terms of if you have AI using imagery, whether it's with presentations or understanding certain medical conditions, because some bits of kit are starting to do that rather than having to get a diagnosis, go to the GP or pharmacy, making sure that they do represent what the problem looks like on different colour skins, so that we can better understand how we're diagnosing people or how we're giving information to health services. And that's from like a social care perspective. But I don't know what you might think.
So this was really interesting. Just before I came out, I have somebody that does my diary. It sounds really posh than it is, but and she said, Lorraine, have you not answered that email about AI, because they need to be able to put a disclaimer on your email? And I was going, but I don't want to do it. And she was going, but you've got to learn how to use AI. So that's pretty much the answer.
Are you just keeping a healthy distance from AI while you can?
I'm just sort of like you said, it's either this or it's that. What's happening with the phones? Are they going from, your landline's going from one thing to another, and it's like, just let me just get on with the day-to-day stuff and let somebody else worry about AI. And when I don't really...
So AI hasn't made your life any easier yet?
It's not... They say it will help social workers. We've got nurse in front of us. It'll make your casework easier, or writing up your notes. But I'm just looking at you, yeah. I don't know if you... Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's not you. She's at the back. There's a nurse in here somewhere. They said it can make... sorry, I can't see her. Oh, she's at the back there. Oh, okay. So it's meant to make you write your notes more efficiently. That's what they say.
Okay.
Time will tell. So they're not trialing it for bigger things, but it's more about your casework, so that you can get on with talking to people, and then it'll synthesize it. Who knows? Time will tell. Watch this space.
Indeed. A question up the back there. Hi.
Great, thanks. And fantastic event, and inspirational, fantastic work that you're all doing. I got a question, if I could articulate it, about, I guess, the expanded roles within social care. For example, I work at UWE, but I'm also connected with Bempska in Bath, the Bath Ethnic Minority Senior Citizens Association, based at Fairfield House, where Haile Selassie lived. And it's very clear when working with elders or younger people in need, there's also advocacy work that can go along with that, and other needs that these individuals may have that might fall outside of the remit of the organisation as such, but then you start advocating. So I just wondered about, what your experience of that is, or that role, is that built into your services? We've had situations where our elders have been in hospital, then they've had different situations, they might have faced racism, or, their needs just weren't met for. But the person that they feel safe to talk about that and to advocate on their behalf are people from Bempska who are working with them, that people from the community. So don't know what the question is, but if you've got reflections on that, and also I guess the extra work that gives you organisations that other organisations that are not catering for global maturity service users might not face. So I guess that extra stretch on capacity.
Yeah, I guess... I don't know if you remember me saying earlier that one of the things I'm focusing on is getting Bristol to be to recognise older people with disabilities, and that will, for me, definitely require us to consider all of what you said. It's about how we connect people to their communities and make it fair, and make sure that adult social care, which is usually about funding care, as you know, is funding for people that need care and support in their homes or in different settings. But we also have within the community voluntary sectors, many voluntary sector organisations that do a lot of work. Like you mentioned, I've forgotten her name. Anne Dolores, for example. During the pandemic, she did some work around food for people from, diverse backgrounds, and that she did a service around that, so that people could eat food that they wanted, that was going to nourish their bodies and stuff. So it's really important that everybody, because I do have a vision that everybody should be able to get the support they need when they need it, and it's got to be unique for them. And I steer away from a kind of everybody is the same, because I'm not the same, so therefore I don't think like that. So therefore, if we have individualized services, no matter what that looks like, then we are going to be hopefully addressing the needs of everybody. And advocacy is a really big issue for us at the moment, because people need to have advocates, especially if they don't have a network around them. So I know that at the Rose Green cricket ground, for example, on a Thursday, they have a service for the elderly, and one of the gentlemen he's 100 years old, 99, and he goes every Thursday and he plays dominoes with everybody that's there from this same cultural background, and they give them support in that space. And I think that's the kind of things that we can be advocating for. So I don't know if it answers your question, but that's the direction of travel. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, what we try to do in our services is if we have somebody of a certain background, then we will try and match them with like care workers from that background as well. So that just helps with like food. If we had like someone was reporting from Jamaica, we will then also put someone, one of our other staff who also got Jamaican heritage, because the food is different, the hair is different. There's so much that's to people to learn. So where we can, we match people, and where most of the time we can match people, so it's okay. But I think if we weren't able to, then we would be looking at making sure that staff are well aware of how to care for that person, and putting support and training and guidance in place to make sure that that person's needs are met. And it's simple things like making sure the skin is moisturised more regularly and understanding when that isn't happening. So that's works really well for us. And then you can, because you do, in social care, you spend so much time with people when you're in front of like social workers. Sometimes the social workers rely on you as a care worker to really tell that person's story if they're not able to tell it themselves. So staff really need to be like capable with that. So I think it's being intentional with the staff and their training before you actually get somebody into a service. So that's been really helpful. And yeah, no, we've worked with other groups. We've worked with Andalores, the Black Carers Network, and Bristol Black Carers, and yeah, just having partnerships with people to see where are the needs and where can we support people and where can we signpost people and get learning. I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
Do we have time for any more questions? No. Okay. Well, we are in a moment going to head into Waterside 3, so you can join us there and ask this brilliant panel any other questions you might have. But please join me in thanking Councillor Lorraine Francis and Sophie Chester-Glyn. And I'll hand back over to Mark now.
Thank you, Corinne. Ooh, I almost went, didn't I? I knew that step would have me. Wow, what can I say? A big thank you on behalf of UE Bristol to our panel. 3 inspirational guests actually this evening. I ran out of space on my paper where I made some notes, and I think listening with intent was in my welcoming kind of introduction, because listening is what we need to be doing within society, listening to the stories, the narrative. So really inspiring stories, and I could see how much it meant in terms of the role models in your lives. Powerful journeys I've written here. There's something about the selflessness when you are leading, and even when you have nothing or very little, like cardboard in your shoes, how you still can give to others who have less than you. Something that speaks to the title that we have tonight been talking about. There's something around looking at difference and things like the race equality standards, what they tell us, but it's much more than the data, isn't it? It's the lived experiences, the difference, the disparities that are created through how someone can be treated so differently to someone else. And how, particularly in social care, which it did get a much rougher deal during COVID, and I personally feel hasn't recovered as quickly as the other sectors have. How do you bring in restorative measures to make sure we look after and inspire tomorrow's social care workforce? Because it's a difficult field to recruit to as well, we find that. There's something about the focus on justice. I love the kind of conversation around the intertwine between social care and politics. I think you did a great job there, Lorraine, of talking about that. And Sophie and Lorraine both talked about never stop learning, and actually how you dismantle some of the norms and how you remain authentic. See, I was paying attention, yeah? I haven't gone much further, sorry, because I know canapes and that are out there. Well, drinks at least. Is there canapes? I don't know. Maybe not canapes. Maybe I've misled you there on that one. What do you do when voices aren't heard, when your voice isn't being heard? Persistence, the need for advocacy. Again, speak to the title, right? What do you do when you know that, hey, hang on, I had something good to say there. Why hasn't it been taken on board? Why? I think making Bristol a better place, whether you happen to be elderly, whether you happen to be disabled, or global majority, is something that I believe we're all aspiring to. There are challenges, and those challenges have been spoken about this evening, but there's something about standing up and the value of allyship. Literally, as I wrote the word allyship, Sophie, you mentioned that very word, so there was something going on there telepathy-wise, I think, in terms of that. The value and importance of role models and how they inspire us as leaders. It was lovely to hear about Princess Campbell, because every time I go into the children's suite at Glenside campus, where I started my career at UB Bristol, I see Princess Campbell's face. I know the journey, but also the difficulties that Princess Campbell had during her time working at the Glenside, as it was in a hospital. The spirit and drive of our role models and the sacrifice for others. And then latterly, the importance of self-care. You can't give to others if your pot or jug is empty yourself. And then the questions at the end, in terms of the importance of engaging with our younger population. They are the future, so we have to find a way of engaging with them and listen to the differences and understand where they're coming from and try to guide and provide light where we can. And then finally, the person-centric approach to care. I'm not going to finish on AI, but I'm going to say that actually healthcare is so entwined with people. It's people that make the difference. So that were my reflections. They were mine. You may not agree with them. You may have your own thoughts. But over drinks, we will cover that as well. So just goes to say that this event is being recorded. So if you ever want to re-watch this at your leisure, you can do so with a glass of something maybe, or a cup of tea. It will be obviously in the media library online. Give us a few days and we will get it up there. Please complete the feedback for this evening. Feedback is really important to us in terms of how we drive and steer these series going forward. There is some refreshments. I can't swear to canapes, actually, sorry. There's definitely, I've been told, no canapes. It's just refreshments. I'm sorry, folks, as well. There is also a couple of bits in the hall through there. One's the Refrain Project, and we're really, it's a delight to have Debbie with us this evening. Debbie Hubbard, who is the leader with Puspa Pant as well. Please do ask questions of Debbie and Puspa about the Refrain Project. It talks just about the very thing that we were talking about in terms of different skin tones and what that means in terms of diagnosis and treatment, and how we need to have a much more diverse library. But Debbie is a much more expert on this than I am. And the second project is the anti-racism exhibition, exploring children's relationship with tolerance through workshops and art. That's it from me. That's it from our panel. Let's give them one massive round of applause. Thank you. And a particular thank you to Corine as well for hosting this evening as well. So thank you, Corine, as well. Okay, refreshments are that way. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.